Um, we are standing here in one of the most wonderful places in this whole region. Maybe in this, maybe east of the Golden Gate Bridge. Every place has its uniquenesses, but botanically this is a very special place. And I don't want to say that too often so it becomes a cliche, but we all know how important it is for what Emily has done here. But I'm going to give you a little story. My wife, Audrey, was a member of a hearth cooking guild. They're a group of ladies who get together several times a month, and they cook the way things were done in 1795. They don't do anything that was done later than that. They follow recipes, they follow practices, they find original old utensils. She gave me a couple to bring today, just as props. A handmade out of a piece of tin grater of nutmegs. This is maybe 100 years old or more. A nutmeg grater. A funny stick here called a spurtle. And I think this end you stir with it. A porridge. And this may have to be made out of a certain piece of wood. These are old things that are still have been rediscovered, you might say, or that have carried over their value from the old times into the new times. I've known Emily for over 30 years. Some of you may have known Herbert Heckenbleichner. He lived to be 95, and he was well known around the state as a botanist. Worked with the Native Plant Society back in those days. Probably first introduced me to Emily, and then I came here to see Emily's garden. I was a student of his at UNC Charlotte back in the 60s. And I came back to UNC Charlotte in 1976 to be a professor of botany there. When I got there, he had retired, but he still kept an office there. And one day he gave me a notebook, an old notebook. He said, "Larry, when you get a chance, send this back to Salem College." And I said, "Okay." So I took it, put it on my desk, and it kind of got covered up by other piles of things. And I didn't think much about it. In the early 80s, Jim Matthews, whose name I haven't written on here, started studying a rare plant down around Charlotte called Schweinitz's sunflower. Schweinitz's sunflower is named after David von Schweinitz, who was one of the most famous botanists in this country, because he came here to teach at Salem College back in the late 1790s. He left there in 1821. 1821, he left Salem College, went to Philadelphia. But he had collected plants in this area. He was the first real botanist to collect plants in this area, Salem College now. He was very famous as a fungus collector. He was probably the most famous mycologist of those days. And he collected, and he traveled around. He didn't go too far, but he went down to the Charlotte area. He was the first one to collect this rare sunflower. And he made a collection of it, a dried specimen, put it in his herbarium at Salem College. And there it sat. He made notes in his notebook. And so when Jim Matthews started studying Helianthus schweinitzii, named for him later, this turned out to be an endangered species that occurs down in the Charlotte area. And it started stopping road projects and housing projects. It was federally endangered. And so Jim was hired by the government to study this rare plant. So he needed to look back and find historical notes about Helianthus schweinitzii. So he wrote to Salem College and said, "I need to see your old notes that von Schweinitz had made." And they said, "We can't find them. We can't find our copy of Schweinitz's notebook," with his handwritten notes on where he had collected this plant down in the Charlotte area. Because Jim Matthews wanted to find those localities. So Jim started asking me, because we always talked about these things, Salem College doesn't have this notebook. And I said, oh, I've got it here on my desk. Dr. Heck gave it to me and told me, I didn't know what it was at the time. This is one of these quirks of fate where, you know, 5 things come together that never were, you wouldn't have known earlier they were going to come together. I didn't know the significance of that notebook. Why Salem College would have sent Dr. Heck and Bleigner such a valuable thing out of their library, because Dr. Heck was looking for locations for rhododendrons in the state, rare rhododendrons. And why Dr. Heck didn't send it back to him in a timely manner. All these things you sit and ask, why did all these things happen? So I gave Jim this notebook and said, here it is on my desk. I've had it here for several months. I was going to send it back. And he was just thrilled. In there were Schweinitz's handwritten notes on when and where he had collected. This, of course, was a copy, not the original. Not the original from 1821, but a copy. And so the herbarium of specimens that are preserved, the notes in a handwritten book that are preserved, the books that people write that are preserved, you never know when those are going to become valuable further down the line. And the past turns into the future, but it has to go through the present. And you all are part of the present. You all can help, hinder, or be neutral. It's kind of hard to be neutral. If you're going through the present, you know the present is constantly moving, you all have and will have and have had an opportunity to contribute to this process of preserving the past and making it available for the future by taking care of it in the present. And that's what this property, the Bethabara property, the forest around here, they were first studied in 1760. Some of the oldest known studies on plants in North Carolina were done right here in this vicinity. And Emily's land here is part of that historical treasure. Of course, she's brought in plants from all over, and they're thriving here. And people like, young botanists like I was, who came here to see Emily's garden 30 years ago, was a thrill for me. I wouldn't be what I am today if I hadn't come here and seen these plants, and she gave me some to take back and be inspired. And so the natural woods, the man-made part, the plants brought in, the activity going on, making this available for everyday people to appreciate is invaluable. So you all have been part of this transition from the past into the future. Piedmont Land Conservancy, in conjunction with Emily, has helped make that happen. Save the community. That has many, many meanings. It could be the community of people, it could be the community of botanists, it could be the community of plants and trees. This whole region, because you saved a large piece of land, life can go on normally to some degree by the plants and animals in this area. And as you know, there are fewer and fewer places like this around as land is developed. So it makes this a very special place. And because of these threads that go back, the threads that all of these people and places and institutions have been part of this, make it that much more valuable. So I'm just here to thank the land conservancies and the people who support the land conservancies and the money that goes into preserving land. You just don't know how valuable that is. Because you don't know what you're going to want from the past. And so you might have new ways of using something that has long been forgotten, except somebody thought to save them and even look for new ways to use it. So you just don't know how valuable this is going to be. And that's all I'm going to say. The simple story is, past becomes the future, and people in the present have to help save it.